cover for him, even though he is absolutely magnificent at this role. He would let you know that you will have your, if you could, and you have a role today, make sure you change your name by right-clicking and renaming yourself. If you have a role, tell us what your role is. Makes it easier for our guests. We do have a lot of cultures here in our club, and we ask that you be sensitive to all the different cultures. And lastly, just so that you know that our club requirement is that you have at least 6 speeches in the company communicator or in the pathways section, or that you do public speaking for a living. And having said that, let's welcome our president, Lois Margolin. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Happy to have you. I do believe, Elaine, you have something that you want to share with us for a moment.
I'm happy to let you know that I love pineapple whipped cream frosting cake, and I don't have it ready to put on up, but we have a special event on February 24th, which is a special guest event called Gestures for Connection, an interactive event with a special guest, mentor and friend of mine, Akeem Nowak. He is a 3-time author, an executive and presentation coach, mastermind leader, and he will lead us through an interesting investigation of our gestural vocabulary, which is something we certainly want to fine-tune here in Online Presenters. Thank you.
All right, and are we going to do the induction today, or is that next week?
We'll do that next week when Swati McHale is here with us.
All right. Well, I don't know if you noticed, but Emily is with us also. She picked up the role of evaluator for today.
I'm so glad she's here. Yes, welcome, Emily. Sorry for the change in schedule.
No problem. Not a problem at all. Having said all that, I know we have a jam-packed evening, and who better than to lead us through Mr. Jim Barber. Please welcome our Toastmaster of the day, Jim.
Thank you, Madam President. Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Barber, coming to you from South Florida, as several other people are. That's the land of the frozen iguana, as some of you may have heard. I was thinking of making frozen iguanas the theme for tonight, but I recognize that not everybody has that particular cultural aspect to them, and we are a cross-cultural club, and so I was beating my head trying to figure out what crosses cultures, what is something that everybody can relate to. And then I saw that today is chocolate cake day. Yes, there is such a day. And I said, wow, that's about as cross-cultural as you can get. However, some people do not like chocolate cake, and so I made it favorite desserts day instead. And I'm glad that so many people picked up on that and are representing it, if you're either actually by having something, or if you're on a diet, doing it symbolically. And that is our theme for the day. Our word of the day, let's see, is I suggested as delicious. If our word of the day person, our grammarian, Antoinette, if you wish to override that, please go for it. Post it in the chat if you want something different. Otherwise, delicious, highly pleasant to the taste, or delightful is our word of the day. And that's about it from here. I want to introduce the other people that will be assisting me in the process tonight, starting with our timer, David Carr. David, what are you going to be doing?
Well, you know, I will kind of go away at some point, and you will just see times rolling by on the screen. Green, oh, there we go. Green, yellow, red. At the appropriate times, I will give reports on how people did for table topics, the formal speeches, and the evaluations as we go along.
Thank you, David. Our counter this evening, Diane Rubino, volunteered at the last minute to come through as be our counter. We appreciate that, Diane. What are you going to be doing this evening?
Not a problem. It's Diane Rubino, although that's nice too. It's not my name.
We're having trouble hearing you, Diane. Can you increase your volume or get closer to the mic?
Is this better? Is this better?
That's better. Thank you.
I keep track of verbal fillers. I also keep track of the word of the day. Folks have mentioned it, not in a judgmental way, but just to help guide you into your next level of excellence. Thank you.
Thank you. Our grammarian this evening is Antoinette Trim. Antoinette, what will you be doing?
As grammarian for this evening, I will be listening very carefully for the good use of the English language, as well as interesting phrases and words, and any grievous use of the English language. And therefore, I'll be taking note of those who use the word delicious and provide a report when called upon to do so. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Antoinette. Our our watcher this evening is Patty Adams. Patty, what will you be doing?
I will be stalking every single person that is on here today. Back to you.
Thank you, Patty. Our chat monitor this evening is John Callahan. John, what will you be doing?
I will be keeping an eye on this right-hand panel of our Zoom screen and keeping a close watch on our interactions as a group to see how well we support each other and encourage us on our journey. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, John. And as we all know, all the thing of coming to the meetings to improve ourselves is a lot of hooey. Actually, we want to win ribbons for doing our best, and we couldn't possibly do that without a vote counter, and consequently, Elaine Nieberding is our vote counter this evening. Elaine, what will you be doing?
Hello, my fellow Toastmasters. So during each of the three main portions of our gathering tonight, speeches, table topics, and evaluations, you will get to cast your vote for the best speaker, best table topic respondent, and the best evaluator. That will depend on all the people qualifying by meeting the time requirement. And you can send your chat to me in private chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. And it should be noted, Elaine also accepts American Express, MasterCard, and Visa. And now, those are the people that will be helping us out in the putting on a fantastic meeting this evening. But of course, what we really want to do is hear from our speakers. So let's get started. Now, there is a challenge. My theme of the day, next time I'm Toastmaster of the Day, is going to be printable fonts that can be read by people over the age of 50. Let me give it a try here. Our first speaker is Roger Fung, speaking from the Dynamic Leadership Level 4 Building Skills Manage Change. There are three things in every long-lasting habit. Master those three, and we can develop almost any habit we desire. There is also one secret ingredient that glues everything together. This one simple ingredient can even help us break away from our addictions. The title of Roger's presentation is Dummy's Guide to Change: How I Worked Out More in the Last 30 Days Than the Last 10 Years Combined. Please help me welcome Roger Fung.
This speech is especially designed for Jimmy Dent and all of you who love chocolate. Imagine, travel back in time for 30 days. In fact, you're having one of these out-of-body experiences. You get to flow on top of the ceiling and you're watching everything going on. It's December 26, 2019. You see Roger at the counter filling in some form. After completing the form, the staff gave Roger a key tag and he scanned it in and he walked toward the back of the building. In less than a minute, Roger stepped into the weight room. That's right, I've joined the club. I am a proud member of my city's senior center. A month has passed since that day, And I have worked out and exercised more in the last, not just 30 days, last 33 days than the last 10 years combined. I've created plans before, goals, you know, one of those SMART plans. How many of you heard of that SMART goals, right? SMART goals, right? That's specific, you got to be measurable, and I cannot even remember the rest. Well, if you don't do one of those, you can go to Amazon and search for goal setting, and you will find over 40,000 results. Now, we don't lack tools. We don't lack plans. However, most of our New Year resolutions is out the door before January is finished. And I have failed too many times too. Well, why? Well, besides being too complicated, there's one common flaw. There's one common flaw in all of these plans and tools. They are logical. Wait. What's wrong with being and having logical plans, you ask? Well, let me ask you something. Raise your hand if you are exercising as much as you know you should. Raise your hand. How many of you are exercising as much as you should? We got 4, 5. And right now we've got 26 people on this meeting. You see, we are not logical beings. You know what you need. That's logical. You know what you should do. That's logical. But majority of us don't do the logical thing because we are not logical beings. We are association beings. We do things that's associated with things that's pleasurable, associated with things that we like. Look at the impeachment trial in America. Tell me where the logic is. And I don't care which side you belong or believe in. Now, logic is a great thing to explain things. But explaining things happen after the fact. We do things because we feel like it. So how did I exercise more in the last month or so than I have in the last 10 years combined? There's an easier way. There's a very much easier way because we're all Pavlov's dogs. You remember Dr. Pavlov? He gave the dog a piece of juicy steak. He rang the bell. Stick, bell, stick, bell. Repeat it over and over again. The next thing you know, he rang the bell. Dog salivate, no steak. Doesn't make sense, right? It's not logical, right? But it worked. It worked for the dog, and it will work for you because it certainly worked for this old dog. My friends, we are all Pavlov's dogs. We associate our actions, and we do those things that's associated with the desire, with the pleasant feelings of pleasures that we enjoy. So the 3 things that you really need is a trigger or a cue of some sort, the activity you want to do, and the reward. That's it. And these things just cycle through over and over and over again. Think about it. If you had a plan to lose 20 pounds and you want to do it because you want to look good before the high school reunion, right? And by the time the high school reunion comes about and you lost 19 pounds, how are you feeling? You're feeling great? No, you're feeling horrible. You're feeling horrible because you're focused on that 1 pound that you didn't lose, not the 19 that's out the door. So instead, if you want to do anything to change any kind of habit, be like the Pavlov's dog and set yourself up. What did I do in this last 30 days? What's the cue? What's that little trigger? Number 1, shoes. I got this pair of shoes and I only wear it when I go to the gym. Second, I drive to the gym. And yes, the gym is in the senior center. And third, I have a little reward. My reward is that I put on my favorite podcast onto my cell phone. And I only listen to those podcasts while I'm exercising. So I don't get to exercise, I don't get to listen to them unless I'm in that gym. That's it. That's all it is. But you say, wait, where's the goal for the weight that I'm going to lift? How many pounds am I going to do? How many reps am I going to do? Those things are confusing. It's only going to mess things up, because the goal is to get this lazy butt into the gym. And when I'm in the gym, well, guess what? I will be lifting weights. I will be pedaling, and I will be exercising. So one of the things that I did, those little secret sauce that I mentioned, is that you got to be mindful of all the things they're doing so that you don't put yourself into a zombie stage. So I have to think about, what am I going to do? So here it is. One day, I got those shoes on, right? I got in the car, right? I was starting to drive to the gym, but my car battery is dead. So I need to go and recharge car number 1 with car number 2. I went back into the house and changed my shoes because I don't want my gym shoes to be associated with fixing the battery. So this is just one example of how we can make changes in our life and making it simple and not get so complicated by focusing on the trigger, the event, the action that we want to do, and the little reward. Try it and tell me next month if you have started a new habit. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Roger. Our second speaker this evening is Chris Hulse. Chris is speaking from the Entertaining Speaker Manual, project number 2, Resources for Entertainment. Chris is doing his 37th Toastmasters speech today in pursuit of his DTM, and this speech is going towards his Advanced Communicator Silver Award. Good for you, Chris. The speech project is called Resources for Entertainment, in which Chris has to deliver a 5 to 7 minute entertaining speech in which he uses material from sources other than his own personal experiences and adapts to his own speaking style. Speaking tonight, college students say the darndest things. Please help me welcome Chris Hulse.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, I don't have kids, and I was never a teacher in elementary, middle, or high school. So I never went through a phase where I got to experience the cute things that little kids must say. But I am a college professor, so in theory, I deal with adults, right? Well, I'm here to tell you, university students must all tap into that inner child from time to time. Or maybe that relationship of teacher-student exacerbates that feeling of wanting to be cute so they can, I don't know, get away with something like not turning in that assignment after a night of sloppy drinking. Talking to my fellow faculty members, we all have a story or two of times that we had a student that was really something. And at the time we wanted to laugh, but being the teacher, we had to hold it together for the sake that all eyes are on you and you're supposed to be the professional. But remember, we're humans too. So here's some stories of college students saying the darndest things. There was a university professor I know that taught effective speaking. You know, that gen ed college class that most people hate, where they have to get up and give 3 or 4 speeches in front of other students. Well, he always makes the students give their speech topics cleared by him to make sure they actually start preparing their speech. Not just get up there and start talking about how much they drank in some guy's dorm room the night before. Also, you never know what subject they might be thinking about in their heads, so better to steer them down the right path. So he met with a student and asked her what her informative speech topic was, and she replied, ball pythons. Not really sure what those were, she explained that they were a large snake and she owned a few, and she happened to know a lot about them, so it would be easy for her to do her speech on. They wrapped up their conversation on her topic, and before she walked away, she goes, hey, one more question. Can I bring it in? One clarification, the professor said to the student, bring what in? She goes, bring my ball python in, silly, the day of my speech, thinking he'd most likely say yes. Not wanting to tell her she sounded nuts, he then was forced to reason with her. No, I don't think that would be a very good idea. Well, why not? I keep it warm right here, as she touched the inside of her chest in front of her professor. He also did not think that was a very good idea either. Hiding animals against your chest during a speech, this sounded like the beginnings of a White Snake Rock video. You have to consider your audience and their feelings on the matter. What if they're afraid of snakes? Also, what if your professor is not a big fan of snakes? What if you're making a point during your speech, you look down, your snake has disappeared, and we find it wrapped around some other student's neck, and they start screaming at the top of their lungs during your speech. Then someone pulls the fire alarm, and we have to evacuate the building. I don't think you want to be any part of that. She comes back with, well, I would wrap it around my own neck. In fact, I do that as I'm driving down the road. I take it to work, and all the girls in the office play with my python. Please. I can see this turning into a huge liability for the school. Some student could have a heart attack. If that thing gets loose, you might see me running down the highway headed for home. You can bring in a picture, but that's where I draw the line. So needless to say, the student did her speech on Amish barn building. So there's this concept in the actual classroom itself of something called the invisible wall. Imagine a college classroom in your head. Hopefully, we've all been in one, or at least seen one on TV or in the movies. Almost all classrooms have two areas, the student area and the teacher's area. Students sit where there's an abundance of seats, and the teachers sit towards the front at a desk. And many times it feels like there's an invisible wall between the two areas. Students sit in the student area, teachers set up shop in the teacher area, and students do not generally set up shop in the teacher area. Well, this whole concept was not lost on a student that my best friend, who's a university professor, encountered on the first day of class. Now, you have to understand that my best friend comes to class dressed fairly similar to his college students. Jeans and work boots, open button-down shirt with a t-shirt on under it, many times a baseball cap, and he carries a book bag himself. He enters the classroom on the first day and crosses the invisible wall into the teacher's area and was approached by a student. You are like the rudest person ever, the student says to the professor. Excuse me, he replies. Have you ever been in a classroom before? Yeah. This is the teacher area. This area is for, and goes look for my friend's name on her schedule. Oh, is that so? Excuse me. And I heard this professor was like a real tough guy. So you do not want to be like in his area when he comes in. Oh, really? Yeah, you should move. I can't believe you're still in his area. You should be very ashamed. So he's a real tough guy, huh? Yeah, I've heard he is really mean. You are going to get into so much trouble. I guess after a few minutes of this going back and forth, my friend the professor figured he should attempt to make the big reveal. Okay, I can't keep up the ruse any longer. Full disclosure, I am, well, the tough guy. Well, what do you mean, she says. I'm the teacher of this class. She goes, no, He goes, You're joking, right? She replied back. I'm not joking. I think you are, and this is not funny. No matter what he tried, she wouldn't believe him. So in desperation, he ended up having to show her his driver's license to prove his identity. Once she believed him, she said, oh, I'm like so sorry. You should probably fail me immediately. He replied back, perhaps I should. As you can see, the days of being a university professor are not always filled with lesson plans or giving A's or F's, and sometimes other letters in between. We do encounter some entertainment in our lives directly from the mouths of our students, even if unintended. You can't always share the stories with your class because, well, the student you're making fun of might actually be there. Or maybe they won't get you're talking about them. That's always funny too. But these tales do make good anecdotes. So the next time you see a professor acting like a human at a party, go up and ask them if they have any stories of college students saying the darndest things. You might be glad you did. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Chris. Before I introduce our third speaker, Christian, could you confirm your times with our timer, David?
Yes, I will do that in the chat. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm posting it in the chat.
Or you can just tell him.
All right, so it's 2 to 3 minutes.
2 to 3?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Our third speaker, as you may have guessed this evening, is Christian Ramchurn. He's speaking from the Communicating on Video panel Straight Talk. Christian is going to practice one of his messages ahead of a professional training geared towards leaders of a corporate organization. His aim is to get them to improve on their team's results by investing in one thing. The title of his presentation is, Are You Investing? Please help me welcome Christian Ramchurn.
Imagine you have overdosed on your favorite chocolate cake during the New Year's festival. You have taken the resolution to go to the gym and shed the extra weight. And when you reach there, you have 3 options. You're going to figure out how to use this kind of equipment by yourself. Option number 2, you have Roger Fung waiting for you in the aisle, and you know you're going to have a bad time at the end of the session. Option 3, you have a seasoned gym goer, someone who has experienced the heights, an Arnold Schwarzenegger of sorts, who's there without you even asking, ready to help you. Which option would you go for? I don't know about you. I would go for option number 3, for the experience, for the person who's there to help me, for the mentoring. That's right, mentoring is the one thing that's going to change our lives, the lives of the people we work with, the lives of all the organizations over the world. And it's the one thing that people tend to forget. Over a 5-year study of 1,000 employees in 2006, Gartner, which is one of the world's leading research and advisory companies, found that mentees or protégés are promoted 5 times more often than those who are not in a mentoring relationship. And millennials plan to stay in the organization for more than 5 years because they are mentored compared to those who are not mentored. And the success rate is 68% for those who are mentored to 32% for those who leave. But think about this. You are all Toastmasters, whether new, in the middle of the journey, or seasoned. What if you spend your entire life achieving and never share your wisdom with someone else? Think about the legacy you will leave, and that is what mentoring is about. International past president of Toastmasters, Pat Johnson, mentioned once, a mentor shares what they learned, their shortcuts and their insights, and they ultimately can ease the learning of the protege. And that's what we need to do. That's what we have to do. That's what we want to do. So if you are not having a mentor right now, if you do not have a protege at the moment, go up, grab one, ask for one, and get things going. Get into the mentoring relationship program. Get it started, because when you do that, you're going to be able to lift this weight. Because even if you have a Roger Fung helping you, it's a Roger Fung helping you. And when you do it with a mentor, you're not going alone, and you go all the way. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Christian. And now, Mr.
I object. I object.
David Carr, how did our 3 speakers do? Did everybody qualify? David.
Everybody qualified, and I will be posting the times. Yes.
Thank you very much, David. Then would you please, everybody, please pass your votes by private chat to the most delicious of our 3 speakers this evening, Roger Fung, Chris Hulse, or Christian Ramchurn. And while you are doing that, I will now pass control of the meeting to one of our favorite parts of the meeting, because they don't call on the Toastmaster, You're aware of that, Peggy, aren't you? Okay. Our table topics master of the evening, Peggy Klauser. Peggy, take it away.
Thanks, Jim. I had a tough time coming up with topics, even though it seems like a fairly easy topic. Everybody's favorite thing is food, I believe. But I tried to make them fun and something to think about. So we'll start with Norman. Norman, which pie would you choose for a pie eating contest?
Thank you, Madam Table Topic Master. That was an easy one. Sweet potato pie. I have a real soft spot in my heart for sweet potato pies. I remember going to a woman actually in your state, West Virginia, Fairmont, and she cooked this awesome sweet potato pie. I came back to the Washington area salivating, really wanting the pie. And I think I must have baked 15 different pies trying to get the pie like hers. I didn't get it there, but I got it pretty close. And I, for many years, was known as the sweet potato pie guy when it came to Thanksgiving or Christmas. And then as the weight started growing and growing, I put down my pie habit. I haven't cooked one in years. Thank you, Madam Table Topic Master.
Okay, thanks, Norman. I was hoping you'd say something messy like a cherry pie. Okay, next, we'll go to Nick. In order to keep temptation away from you, for any dessert food that you can think of, what food do you wish could be banished from the earth in order to keep temptation away from you, Nick?
Well, I would have to say chocolate cake. My middle name is chocolate cake. That's my surname, by the way. When I actually stopped eating chocolate cake, I actually astounded people with the fact that we had a dinner and I had no carbohydrates. And then when it came to dessert, you know what I had? Nothing. No chocolate cake, no chocolate mousse, no chocolate anything. And to be honest, I don't want just chocolate cake to be abolished, but all chocolate, because it is the scourge of the earth. It's so debilitating and addictive and moreish. And if I could, I would eat one now. That's the problem. If we could, we would eat it now, just like any other drug. Therefore, chocolate cake is not on my favorite list right now. However, I seem to have done reasonably well with it for the last 50 years. So I'm going to actually have a go for the next 50 without. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster, Table Topics Master.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. Interesting choice. I think we all could agree on that one. Okay, next we'll go to Joy. Are you ready, Joy? Okay, Joy, what is your favorite dessert to eat on a snowy day?
I don't think it makes any difference whether it's a snowy day or not. I love all kinds of desserts. I have a sweet tooth. But one of my favorites is creme brulee and chocolate mousse. And when we go on vacations, if we have this kind of vacation that my husband loves, where all is inclusive, I can eat like 4 desserts or 5 desserts, and I just eat very little of the main course. But back to the snowy day thing, I don't think I do especially much comfort eating that is typical for snowy days. So, but if I had to think of some kind of warm dessert that would be especially good on a snowy day, it might be some kind of Finnish fruit soup with a lot of whipped cream on it. That's a very lovely warm dessert to eat on a cold day. But otherwise, it doesn't matter. I mean, the weather or what it is, just when it's sweet, I will love it. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Okay, thanks, Joy. Next, we'll go to Patty. Are you ready, Patty?
Yes.
Okay. Patty, you're seated at the Thanksgiving table and you're asked pumpkin pie or pecan pie. What would your answer be and why?
Absolutely pecan pie. In fact, when you asked what would be the favorite pie contest, I was like, yes, let her ask me. Pecan is like the absolute best. Although you have to be careful because you couldn't eat it in a eating contest because you may end up going to the bathroom a lot from all those nuts. Yes, I said it. It's the truth. We're talking about health, and so that's part of the health. So have to have that pecan pie. But if you taste it, oh my gosh, it's so sweet and it's so delectable and it's easy to share, and you don't have to have a big piece of pie. You can have a little piece and still just get so satisfied. Pumpkin pie is like, I could kind of leave that. I'm not a real big pumpkin fan unless it's a pumpkin roll. Now, I love pumpkin roll. And people go crazy over pumpkin, by the way. There's pumpkin spice Pop-Tarts and pumpkin spice lattes and so much pumpkin. It's like, can we get some pecans around here? Let me have some pecans and I'd be a happy woman all day. Eat pecans. You know, it's like bubble gum, talked about all the shrimp, pineapple, shrimp cocktail. That would be me with pecans. Pecans with chocolate, pecans that you can dip, pecans that you can chew. Just give me lots of pecans and don't forget the pecan pie. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thanks, Patty.
You're welcome.
And then I'm going to look to the Toastmaster. How are we doing on time?
We are doing just fine, Peggy. Take it away.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, I'll look to Jimmy. Are you ready, Jimmy?
If you're referring to Jimmy Den, he had to leave.
Oh, okay. Let's try somebody else. Elaine, would you like one?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Elaine. As a child, my favorite dessert was, but as an adult, I now like things that are fill in the blanks.
As a child, my favorite dessert was the one that I pictured: whipped cream, pineapple frosting on angel food cake, and I still make that. But much to my surprise, I have become much more of an ice cream eater in my adult life. And within the last year, I have, on a few occasions, indulged in variations of vanilla ice cream with either Reese's Pieces inside or swirled through peanut butter or peanut butter and fudge. You know, one of those guilty pleasures. Now, I buy a big half-quart size. I don't sit there with the quart size and take it as a single serving and just eat it while I'm binging on Netflix. Happily, I don't have a subscription to Netflix, so I can't do that. I typically just put out 2 little custard cups, take a little scoop, you know, a little bit for myself, a little bit for my husband, and maybe over a week's time, we'll put away that half-gallon of peanut butter fudge ripple. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thanks, Elaine. You kind of led right into my next question with your references to ice cream. I'll go to Antoinette and see if she's ready.
Yes, I am.
Okay, banana peanut butter chip by Haagen-Dazs, Blackberry Hibiscus, Baskin Robbins, Brown Butter Bourbon Truffle by Private Selections. Now, what would the company from Antoinette make as the next flavor ice cream?
None of the above. None of the above. In the Caribbean, we are not accustomed to those sort of variations. We would go more so with fruits or vegetables or something ground provision. So we would go something like cassava ice cream, dasheen ice cream. Those are the sort of things that we would go for. And so that my company, Antoinette Trim's Ice Cream Company Limited, will go for cassava ice cream, dasheen ice cream, lettuce ice cream, along those lines. Back to you, Topics Master.
If we have time for one more question.
We do indeed.
Okay. I'll go to Deborah. Deborah Carr, are you ready?
I am now.
Okay. If you could make popcorn into a dessert, how would you make it and how would you flavor it? Deborah?
Ooh, let's see. Well, I don't know, because if and when I make popcorn, which is a rarity, I use olive oil and butter mixed, and then I put nutritional yeast on it and lecithin. So, mine's pretty healthy. So, but I did see something on one of the news channels last week, that they used, what did they use? They used cashews and steamed them, and then honey and dates and something, and they made a natural caramel. So that would probably be what I would do if I needed to. It was kind of mind blowing how they put it together, and it was on it. Now I know where it was. It was on NBC in the morning show, if it's today or whatever it is, and it was really looked great, because it was natural and it was healthier, but yet it would probably give you that sweetness. So that's what I would do. Back to you.
Okay. Okay, let's see who we'll go to next. Diane?
I think we need to wrap it up, Peggy. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Timer, how did everybody do?
Well, funny thing, according to my timing device, Norman stopped 1 second before the green light came on. And rather than disqualifying him for 1 second, I am ruling that I must have started the timing device 1 second late. However, Antoinette actually was a little bit shorter than that. She was at 47 seconds. So you can vote for anybody on that list except for Antoinette.
Thank you, David. Would everybody please pass their votes for the most delicious table topics response to our vote counter, Elaine? And while you are doing that, that's of the members that qualified. And while you are doing that, I will now pass control of the meeting to our general evaluator, Deborah Carr. Deborah, take it away.
Yay! What a fun meeting, and I feel like between the discussions and watching the chat that I'm either going to gain or lose after this meeting. So we'll see how this all goes. The speaker is not working. Please check your connection. Can you guys hear me?
You're breaking up. Now we hear you. Okay. Try again.
You're muted now, Deborah.
No, you're muted.
And is it now?
That's okay.
Okay. I'll pull this closer and maybe that'll work. We'll see. I apologize. And if anybody needs to jump in, just go ahead and let me know. Anyway, so we had fun tonight. We've learned a lot. And David has already put the times in. What I want to do is just double check on timing for any speakers, any evaluators, any table topics, and make sure that it's all clear and make sure that everyone has already voted. Are all the votes in? Can you hear me? Okay, all right.
You're still breaking up, but we can hear you.
Does somebody else want to jump in?
Nope, it's fine.
Okay. All right.
The question, I think, was, have the votes been counted yet?
Okay.
I don't believe so, because some of us are still voting.
All right. Well, our grammarian tonight was Antoinette. So Antoinette, if you'll go ahead and give us your report, that would be great.
Okay, as grammarian, I haven't discovered any grievous use of the English language, but I'm just drawing a reference to about 3 speakers. Roger, I like his phrase of we are not logical beings, but we are associated beings, and he talked about Pavlov's laws. That was interesting. And Chris Halsey, one of his phrases was top of your lungs, so it shows that it's a loud cry, and invisible wall. And Chris, and that's it about it. But Jim, he used delicious, the word of the day, delicious, once so far. And practically none of the speakers use the word delicious. Everybody more or less talk about chocolate cakes. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. And our counter is Diana Rubino.
Hi. I'm going to do very well. I'll just go through a few very small adjustments. Elaine, in the first go around, there was one I have a lot of grammatical notes, but I hear from Antoinette that I'm not supposed to be doing that. So I'm skipping over all of these notes that I made. Norman, one Joy, and M, very European. I had Elaine, you know. Patty, and it's like 2 times. I don't, it was Deborah said something to the effect that something is kind of mind-blowing, and was a filler. And David Card was very last up to that, had 2 U's.
Okay. My apologies, everyone, that I didn't start with the evaluators, but I'm just going to go ahead and do this part, and then we'll go back to the evaluators. I think it was the part about my mic. I apologize. Our next one is the watcher. Patty, if you'd give us your report on spying on us, please.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Overall, it looked pretty good. I'm going to point out a couple of things. It looked like there was a couple of people that maybe was bored, and I hate to use that word, but that was some that was kind of like, and that can be a little distracting to the speaker. So just try to make sure to be as engaged as possible. We realize that sometimes you're going to yarn and do some other things. I'm going to point out just a few little tips. Peggy, you seem to be quite far away from the screen, so you may want to come up just a little bit. Antoinette, you're off to the side instead of in the middle. And there were some lighting issues with one of the ladies, but she has gone. But overall, really good. Really like that a lot of the backgrounds included your delicious desserts. And so overall, everything looked good. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we'll wait for the votes. For our evaluators, Mike Walsh, you evaluated Roger. Will you please give us your report?
Thank you, Madam Journal Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and of course, Roger. I want to start off, Roger, by saying that the first thing I noticed was your background, because it was almost the perfect speaker background. Somehow or another, you're able to have lights all the way around your head, and you're perfectly lit with a little bit of color in the back. So I thought that was the perfect presentation. And of course, when you started, you really start with a smile. Your whole face, your eyes, everything's smiling, like you just worked out or something, Anyway, Roger was doing the Dynamic Leadership Level 4 project, and it was a project about managing change. So it was to focus on planning for change, developing a communication plan, and to identify obstacles to success. And I think first off, Roger did very well with this project. He certainly covered his objectives. I noticed his voice was very smooth, was very almost soothing and excited at the same time. If I were to make one suggestion, I would say that when you got to the area talking about Pavlov's dog and you're having a little bit of fun with it, maybe use a little more of that variation in your voice. You have a tone, and it raises and lowers, but then you got right into it when you're doing Pavlov's dog. So not a lot, but I mean that kind of punctuation really stood out. I want to talk about the structure, because this was a typical 3-structure speech, beginning, middle, end. But of course, your conclusion had a lot of 3s in it as well. I noticed in the chat somebody put in the 3 R's, but really the 3 points that you were making was to, of course, have a trigger, act on it, and then have a reward. And you hit on that 4 separate times in 4 separate ways. And I thought that was excellent. If I were to change something, I would say just shrink it down just a little bit. Just a little bit. The conclusion was, maybe a little long as far as when I was thinking about when you were wrapping up. But other than that, I thought the structure was excellent. And that use of 3s, constantly hitting home the same 3 messages over and over with a different example, I thought was just perfect. So thank you, Roger. I thought it was an excellent speech, and you certainly met your objectives.
Thank you very much, Mike. Our next evaluator was Graham, who evaluated Christopher.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, ladies and gentlemen, in particular, Christopher, thank you for an excellent presentation. As somebody who also teaches adults at university level, I had to smile at many of the observations you're making. Let me begin by saying that Christopher certainly met the objective. The objective of this particular speech is that you have to take material that is not directly from your own life and use that for entertainment. And what Christopher did was he spoke from an area that he was familiar with, but they weren't his stories. They were stories that he had been given or he had been told. So well done on meeting the objective. The second point that I would make for Christopher is that this speech was beautifully written. There was hardly a word in here that didn't fit just right. And it made us laugh out loud at times. It certainly made us smile all the way through. But there's a flip side to this coin, if I may. And that is because it was so beautifully written, it felt like it was being read as opposed to delivered in the way that you would expect a keynote or entertaining speech to be. So what I would suggest is the really important part would have been to not so much memorize the introduction, but know that introduction so well that you didn't need to start out. Then you can refer to your notes, and everybody expects us to refer to notes occasionally, but it just felt a little, as I say, for me, as if it were being read rather than delivered. Another suggestion that I can make, this is a storytelling speech. Entertaining speeches are about storytelling. And quite frankly, the best way to begin a story is once upon a time. So rather than say, I've never taught children, but I do teach adults, and I got to tell you, they come up with some really daft things. Start with, you might think that by the time people get to college, they would stop being such doofuses, but believe me, they're not. Let me give you some examples. That gives us a once upon a time which hooks us directly into the story. The highlight for me of this speech, however, was the vocal variety and the facial expression which you were able to use. Some of the eye rolls, some of the facial expressions were excellent, and I really, really did love the use of dialogue, particularly the Valley Girl accent, and that made me, as I say, feel like I was part of this conversation. So I commend you on your speech, on certainly meeting the objective, and on a beautifully written speech. I would urge you to look at a more fluid delivery, because that will make this even more entertaining, but keep up with the facial expressions, particularly in this constrained environment. You can't make big gestures, but you can use your face to make the point. Well done, and I genuinely look forward to seeing the next speech in this series.
Thank you, Graham. And our last evaluator is Emily, who evaluated Christian. Emily, are you ready?
I am. Thank you. Christian, I wanted to say I really enjoyed your speech, and this is an unusual case where the evaluation might be longer than the speech. Thank you so much for your presentation on Are You Investing? And you were invested in telling us all about mentoring in 3 short minutes. I'll tell you what I saw, what I heard, and what I felt, and then perhaps give you a tiny suggestion based on my not knowing so much about online presentations. What I saw was you seemed very calm, cool, and collected. You were pretty well placed in your visual field. You looked professional with a nice polo shirt, a nice background. What I heard was a very strong beginning, a very strong ending, and a well-structured speech that had a lot of logic to make your point regarding why your listeners should invest in mentoring, both in being mentored and in having a protege of their own. So that was very much appreciated. And how I felt was, I felt like you were a very competent person that I would be willing to listen to again. I think you met the goals of your objectives, which were to present your opinion in a professional 3-minute video, so that was excellent. I think you related convincingly on the television camera. And then just regarding vision, and this is only my 4th time at this online presenters, I think your head was a little high in the frame so that your hair was touching the very top. You seem to have a second computer on your left that is in the foreground, and it is a little distracting, but still overall it was excellent, and perhaps you could get feedback from others on the visual presentation. Overall, I think you had knocked it out of the park, and I think that as you go to give this again, it'll be an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And for some reason, we lost the picture of you, but thank you very much for the evaluation. To spin this back around, I guess this is just going to be like a cake beater, a mixer tonight for cooking desserts, because the way I'm doing the general evaluation, because we now can have the chat monitor, who is John, if you'll give us your evaluation on the chat.
The chat was very filling tonight. There was a lot of calorie discussions in the chat. It started out with all of our discussions about desserts, and Sakashur went above and beyond by not only putting in a picture, but also having all the ingredients to his very tasty sounding Indian dessert. That sounded wonderful. And Elaine started us off with her angel food, and that went off great. And then there was just a nonstop stream of calorie-laden discussions about different food products. But there were some very good, helpful things in there. When Andrew Byrne added into Roger's speech about SMART, about the goals being specific, measurable, and so forth, that was a good addition to the whole discussion on the chat area. And there was a couple other things that really helped out along the way of helping to add something to the discussion. So overall, it was a very full discussion in the chat, and now I feel like I need to have a cleanse or something.
Especially after this evaluation part. Once again, I apologize for my part with the with the mic and everything else. But at least that's what's wonderful about excuse me, Toastmasters. We can punt and go and keep going. So I felt tonight's meeting was excellent. It's always fun. And it was caloric, plus it was, as John said, we may need a cleanse after all this tonight, but we always learn, and it was just totally enjoyable. What I did see was that everyone did qualify, and it's going to be fun to find out who did win on which part, because each person I felt was just excellent tonight. I really did. I love the backgrounds that everyone used, and what everybody brought tonight to the table. So with that, if we're ready, we can do a drum roll for who won tonight. Elaine, if you will please tell us who took the best evaluator.
I don't have all those counted yet, so okay. I'm going to give you the results for Best Speaker, which was, drumroll, Roger Fung.
There he is.
Congratulations, Roger. Okay. Best Table Topics presenter was Norman Dow.
All right, thank you.
And I have to count up the evaluation votes. So come back to me in about 60 seconds.
I will. Now, with watching this through the chat, if anybody's interested, you can save the chat so you can connect again into David's talk tomorrow night. Is it tomorrow, David? If you would put that in the chat again, because I think it got buried.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, if you would do that, that would be great. And there's a lot of extra information. Roger puts in about different things about his speech. The other thing is, does anyone have anything else to add about the evaluation tonight? And does anybody have any comments about tonight? Obviously not. Good. Okay. And Elaine, you're not quite ready yet? Doesn't look like the webinar is in the chat for tomorrow.
Just a quick reminder for everybody about the chat, and this is particularly for our guests and newer members. If you want to save the chat, if you go to the chat and click on the little 3 dots, there's a save chat option, which allows you to save it to your hard drive so that you can then go back and read all about what a calorie actually is, which is apparently the amount of energy required to boil 1 milliliter of water, or take it to 100, whatever it is. Yeah, details are there. Yes.
Yeah. I don't think we had any guests tonight, did we? Jim?
One.
Did we?
Yes.
Which one?
We have our guest, Webby, who is here from the United Kingdom. She is up late, and we need to say hello, thank her for her attendance. Okay. And Webby, if you can unmute, we would love to hear your comments about being a guest at Online Presenters. What do you think of what's going on here?
Well, firstly, thank you very much. I have a little visitor just woken up from bed, so I have to put her back to bed. But it was very entertaining and very educational, so thank you very much. And I hope to check you guys out again. And I'm sorry for my very bad light. I am waiting for Amazon to deliver me something I've ordered. So hopefully it will arrive soon.
Thank you so much, Webby. I'll be in touch with you as the Vice President of Membership to share a little bit more information from you. And indeed, do come back for another visit.
Thank you.
And Webby, I thought you had already joined, so my apologies there. Now, Elaine, do you have...
I am now happy to announce that the best evaluator for the evening was voted to be Graham Carnes. Congratulations, Graham.
Thank you. And with that, I think I saw Diana. Diane, did you have your hand up for something, or you were just waving up? Okay. And I'm going to turn this right back over to Jim to close out the meeting.
Thank you, Deborah, Madam General Evaluator. And please, no apologies are necessary. I was a little surprised when you deviated from the normal schedule, but I figured you knew what you were doing. You were doing something innovative, and if you had bluffed, I would have gone right ahead with it without a problem. So always just assert yourself and be confident. All right, I want to applaud everybody for your enthusiastic participation in the meeting tonight. I had a blast. I hope you did too. And since our president de jour has left us, I'm going to return control to the president when I joined Online Presenters, David Carr, and I'll let David wrap up the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Well, is there any further business? Because if not, well, I don't know. I guess we're actually a few minutes before 9 o'clock.
Hey there,
the reason
David.
is because
Yes.
one of the speeches was only 3 minutes.
I think Elaine might have a message that she wants to share, even if she might have shared it earlier, just in case anybody missed it. We want to make
I
sure
think I shared information about our event before we hit the record button. So I'm happy to have it on here for all the replay viewers. Coming up on February 21st, we have a special guest event, a special educational interactive event called Gestures for Connection, a new look. This is with a mentor and friend of mine, Mr. Akeem Nowak, who's a presentation and executive coach, an article writer in Forbes and New York Times and all other kinds of interesting places, a mastermind convener. He helps people really bring their presence alive for effective connection. So do look on our website. If you're a guest watching, we'd love to have you come back on February 24th. Members, you can go to our Facebook group where you will see this event listed, and you can share it on your own Facebook page to invite others to this special event. It'll be a different kind of interaction, so bring folks on by. Thanks, David.
All right. Let's see, I think we're basically done. So I'm going to stop the recording. And if anybody wants to stick around and